Hello, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 8 of the Free Fork Podcast. My name is Michelle Sadowski, and I'm so happy to have you here. Today, the title of our podcast is called Your Gut is Listening: Trauma, Stress, and the Gut-Brain Connection. But before we jump in, we're going to start with a story. A while back, I had a conversation with somebody who came to me seeking advice. She sat down and said something along the lines of, "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong." She was eating well. She had cut out dairy. She had cut out gluten. She had cut out sugar. She tried probiotics. She had tried digestive enzymes, elimination diets, you name it. At that point, she was basically eating 3 safe foods and still feeling terrible. And her symptoms were very classic digestive complaints: bloating every day, stomach pain after meals, unpredictable bowel habits, and this constant feeling of inflammation and fatigue. But she kept saying the same thing over and over. I don't even know if she realized it. "I'm doing everything right." So we started talking, and not just about food and habits, but about life. And slowly the real picture started to come into focus. She was raising 2 young kids. She was working full time. She was sleeping maybe 5 hours a night. Her nervous system was completely shot and was basically in a permanent state of high alert. And at one point, she said something that really stuck with me. She said, "I feel like my body just doesn't trust me anymore." And that sentence right there is the doorway into today's episode. Because sometimes the problem isn't the food. Sometimes the body is simply stuck in survival mode. And when that happens, one of the very first systems to become disrupted is digestion. Now, before we get even deeper into this big conversation, I want to try something a little different today. Just take a moment and notice where you are right now. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're walking the dog, maybe you're folding laundry that just never really seems to end. The pile just somehow mysteriously gets bigger and bigger, and you always have socks that don't match. Just pause for 1 second. Notice one thing around you that you can see, and notice one thing around you that you can hear. Maybe one place in your body where you might be holding tension. Maybe it's your shoulders, your jaw, your stomach. If you can, take one slow breath. Imagine letting 5% of that tension soften. Not fixing it, not forcing relaxation, just softening a little. Because the truth is, most of us move through our entire day without ever pausing long enough to actually notice how our bodies are feeling. And today's episode is really all about learning to listen to those signals, especially the ones that are coming from your gut. In the last episode, we talked about the mind-body connection and how our emotional state can have a very real impact on our physical health. If you missed it, I really recommend going back to listen to it because it really sets us up for what we're going to talk about today. But today we're zooming in on one specific part of that relationship, and that's the gut. You've probably heard people refer to the gut as their second brain, and surprisingly, that's not just a trendy wellness phrase, it's actually rooted in real biology. Your digestive system contains something called the enteric nervous system, or the ENS, and it's made up of more than 100 million nerve cells lining your gastrointestinal tract from the esophagus all the way down to the rectum. I'm like, am I allowed to say rectum on here? Which means your gut isn't just digesting food. That's not its only job. It's sensing, it's communicating, it's reacting constantly. So today we're talking about your gut and how it's listening to everything happening in your life. And yes, this conversation may include the word rectum. It might also include some other, yucky bathroom words, but we're grown-ups. We can make it through. Your gut and your brain are in continuous communication through something called the gut-brain axis. One of the main messengers in that system is the vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem all the way down your digestive organs. Think of it like a two-way walkie-talkie. Your brain talks to your gut, and your gut talks right back to your brain, which is why we have expressions out there like, I have a gut feeling, or I've got butterflies in my stomach. They're actually biologically true statements. Your emotions and your digestion are deeply intertwined. Now, scientists have known for quite a while that there's a connection between digestive problems and mental health. Although, if you ask, the doctors I've seen over the years, I don't think any one of them has ever suggested the connection between the two, although it is proven in science. People who struggle with anxiety or depression often also experience things like IBS or bloating, constipation, diarrhea, stomach pain. But scientists are still trying to answer the big question of which came first. Is it the chicken or the egg? Do mood disorders trigger digestive issues? Or do digestive issues trigger mood disorders? The answer right now seems to actually be a bit of both. I see this often when people start paying attention to their health. They say something like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. Just like that person I mentioned at the beginning. They eat clean, they take probiotics, they try the elimination diets, they cut certain foods out like dairy or gluten or sugar. And at some point, they're basically just living on quinoa and hope. And somehow they still feel bloated, inflamed, exhausted. They feel off. They just don't feel great. And sometimes the missing piece is more than just the food. Sometimes it's actually stress, or more specifically, trauma stored in our body. I'll tell you a little bit of a personal story. I remember certain periods of my life where my digestion was just chaos, absolute chaos. Bloating constantly, random stomach pain for hours at a time, food sensitivities popping up out of nowhere. And of course, my first instinct was, okay, which food did I eat that was the trigger food? Which food did I eat that was the problem? So I did all the things. I changed my diet. I added supplements. I tried to be the healthiest human being alive. And I will say that given the state that my stomach was in, making those changes has made a massive impact on my digestive wellness. But eventually, my naturopath asked me a question that kind of stopped me in my tracks. And she said, what else is going on in your life right now? And let's talk about some of the patterns in your life over time. And the answer was a lot. I'm incredibly busy. A friend of mine, I have plans with her for dinner later today. And she wanted to cancel just because she's got a lot going on in her life right now. And she said to me, I know that you are so busy that I don't want to miss the window of opportunity with you. When she asked me out of curiosity when my next free evening is, and it's literally a month from now. And my life is very go, go, go. I don't have a lot of downtime. I savor the downtime that I do have, but I constantly have a lot going on top of everybody's shtick that they've got with their families and their whatever. So I've got a lot of stress. I've got a lot of emotional stuff. I've got life transitions. And I remember thinking when she asked me this, what does any of that have to do with my stomach? Turns out, everything. For me, my life of trauma, big T's and little ones, picked my gut as its favorite place to show up. Emotionally, I had gone through the work with my therapist to process a lot of it already. And I'm in a really, really good state emotionally. But physically, my body was still carrying the stress. And my therapist understands the connection, and my naturopath understands the connection. And it was eye-opening for me that I had never understood the connection. When I started understanding the mind-body connection, it felt like this light bulb moment for me. My naturopath told me something kind of interesting. She said that many people in her world spend years trying to fix digestive symptoms before they realize that the nervous system is involved. The fact that I made that connection so quickly was a bit surprising to her because she has had clients working with her for years and they still haven't made that connection. So it was quite remarkable to her that I had made it quite quickly. And when the body experiences trauma, whether it's acute trauma, chronic stress, or complex trauma, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. I talk about trauma a lot in my work outside of this work, And I spend some time defining trauma for people because people don't actually understand the definition of trauma in many cases. If you're not familiar, trauma is any event that exceeds our ability to cope. And when I say acute trauma, that means maybe it's a one time situation or scenario or event that caused a traumatic response in a person. Maybe it's chronic. Maybe that, trigger or that element of trauma is repeated in somebody's life. Or maybe it's complex trauma where there are multiple different sources of trauma that are coming and going at all different kinds of times. But regardless, whatever causes the trauma, whatever type of trauma it might be, we know that when somebody enters a traumatic state, they shut down in many ways. The nervous system really shifts into survival mode. You might have, know of it as fight or flight, but really it's fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. When that happens, the body starts prioritizing systems that are absolutely necessary for immediate survival because your body does see it as a true threat to its existence. Your heart is essential. Your lungs are essential. Digesting the lunch you just ate, not urgent. So digestion kind of gets pushed to the back burner. And short term, this is actually very smart biology. Your body is simply just trying to get you through the current moment as quickly and safely as it can. But long term stress changes how the digestive system actually functions. Over time, we see things like reduced stomach acid production, lower digestive enzyme production, changes in our gut motility, increased intestinal permeability, meaning like leaky gut, if you've ever heard of leaky gut syndrome, chronic inflammation. And all of those symptoms eventually show up in our bodies as food sensitivities or IBS symptoms, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. And your body isn't malfunctioning, it's trying to protect you. I know it may not feel that way, but that is your body's way of biologically trying to protect you. There's also something else happening underneath the surface that maybe we don't see or notice. Chronic stress can change the composition of your gut bacteria. Your microbiome becomes less diverse. And diversity is really important because the more diverse your microbiome is, the more resilient it can be. So if we have less diversity, it's weakened. This can contribute to mood disorders, autoimmune conditions, hormonal imbalances, metabolic issues. It's a bit of a cycle. So the cycle looks something like this. Trauma leads to stress. Chronic stress raises your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Cortisol increases your inflammation in your body. Inflammation causes damage to the gut lining, and that damage creates more inflammation, and the cycle continues. Inflammation doesn't stay very nicely inside your digestive system like we might hope it would. It affects your brain, your hormones, your thyroid, your skin, your energy levels, everything. Inflammation is a holistic challenge that people face. So here's the part that we maybe don't hear about enough. And this is the challenge when people are seeking out support in a naturopathic way. And this is maybe why naturopaths have a bit of a bad rap. You can't probiotic your way out of a chronically activated nervous system. Okay? And if you go to a naturopath or a holistic practitioner of any kind, a holistic coach, whomever you might see, and the first thing they do is automatically prescribe you supplements and probiotics without acknowledging any of the other components, know that that is a bit of a flag. You cannot probiotic your way out of a chronically activated nervous system. Supplements can help. They can support the healing, but they're not magic. Real gut healing requires supporting the body in a few different ways. First and foremost, we need to find a way towards nervous system regulation, like constant or regular, repeated nervous system regulation, not just for a brief moment, but for like the majority of the time. On top of that, we also need to find our way towards blood sugar stability, anti inflammatory nutrition, finding ourselves within safe relationships, holding and protecting healthy boundaries. And sometimes, often that includes trauma informed therapy or somatic work. Now, the good news is that the gut brain loop works in both directions. When the nervous system calms down, digestion improves. So it's not just a negative loop, it's also a positive one. When digestion starts to improve, mood and resilience improve too. Your body almost always is striving to return to balance. Homeostasis is our body's natural balancing place, and your body will fight to try to achieve homeostasis as often as possible. That's what your body wants. So, what does that look like in everyday life? Nothing extreme, consistent support, but you shouldn't need to overhaul your entire life in order to make this happen. So, I'm going to throw a few tips at you. I also created a cute little infographic that I'll post, and feel free to save it and share it, whatever you like. But these are kind of just small tweaks that we can make so that we can support our body and its well being. Some of them are practical, some of them are nutritional, and then some of them also support the mental health side. So, first, protein at every meal. Protein helps to stabilize blood sugar, and it helps your body from riding the cortisol roller coaster. It's super important to have protein at every meal. If you're wondering what kind of foods fit within this category that might be easily accessible for you, eggs, chicken, fish, Greek yogurt, beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, and seeds are all very accessible, easy to find, easy to make, and easy to eat proteins. Healthy fats. Healthy fats support brain health, hormone balance, and inflammation regulation. You want to find things that are high in omega 3. Omega 3 is so good for your brain function. Avocados, olive oil, walnuts, chia seeds, salmon. A little goes a long way. And just remember that, healthy fats, of course, they are still fats. So they do have a higher caloric impact. So you don't need as much of them in order for them to have an impact. That's what I mean when I say a little goes a long way. But they do have such a beautiful positive impact. Fiber-rich carbohydrates. I know it feels like everyone out there in the universe right now is just plugging for protein and fiber, but there's a reason why they're doing that. Fiber feeds your gut bacteria. Fiber helps you so much with digestion. So things like beans, whole grains, berries, apples with the skin on, leafy greens, especially broccoli, are all great fiber-rich carbohydrates. Some of them are actually in more than one category, which means that you can check off a few boxes very easily. A tip that I have for you is to diversify your plate. This is a bit of Chinese medicine. I don't want to call it lore. It's not lore because it's true, but it's a really nice way for us to think about the foods that we eat and what we're eating and what's on our plate. Diversifying your plate means that we want to aim for multiple colors on our plate in a meal. So the golden rule in Chinese medicine is to aim for 5 different colors. So that might mean that you have purple cabbage, you might have red tomatoes, you might have green cucumbers, you might have an orange pepper, maybe you have a yellow pepper, whatever it is. The more colors we have on our plate, the more diverse nutrients we are receiving. And it's a really nice goal for, um, you know, for your own health when you're looking at a plate. It's a nice rule of thumb. Different colors equal different nutrients and your gut bacteria thrives on having variety. And how we eat matters too. So I want you to think that it's not just about what we eat, but it's also how we eat. So, I know myself, and I want you to think about how many times we have crammed a meal in while standing over the kitchen sink, or while we're sitting at our desk in a meeting, or typing, or doing something else at the same time. I was a teacher for many years. How many of my lunch meals were standing in front of my classroom, or marking, or doing other things? All of those multitasking meals have a negative impact on us. So, my goal or my wish for you is to try not to multitask while you're eating, which honestly I know is so hard. Take a few breaths before you start your meal. Just stop, take a few breaths, ground yourself in mealtime, even if it's a short meal, a quick one. Let it be just about that for even 10 minutes. This helps shift the body into rest and digest mode. It actually activates your digestive system when you stop and think about the fact that you're about to start eating. You know how you start to salivate when you're looking at food that looks really good or smells really good? That's your body's way of gearing into, okay, I'm about to eat mode. So even taking a few breaths before you start and starting to think about your meal will help your body shift into this place. Digestion really does work better when we slow down. Even simple things help. Make sure that you're sitting down when you eat. Preferably at a table would be great. Short walks after meals, if you're able to take one, really aid digestion quite a lot. Ensure that you're eating consistently and you're not skipping meals just because you're too busy or you think you'll grab something later. Try to eat consistently throughout your day, because when the body doesn't know that food is coming, it stays in stress mode. Now, the last tip or suggestion that I have for you is about addressing the root cause. Sometimes gut healing means that we have to acknowledge the deeper stuff that's going on. If you're anything like me, you might prefer to keep your trauma neatly stored away in little boxes on a shelf. I am a master compartmentalizer. Everything is organized, everything is tucked away in my brain, and I only pull it off the shelf when it's absolutely necessary. I'm a very forward moving person, which means I don't look backwards very often. I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Which means it makes me quite resilient when it comes to dealing with challenging moments or challenging times in my life. But therapy has taught me something very important. Healing doesn't always happen by pushing forward. Sometimes it happens by turning toward what we have been carrying. It's really important to take time to acknowledge our lived experiences. And one of the things that my naturopath encouraged me to do was to actually thank myself for bringing me to this place, for getting myself through the things that I've experienced. And so for you, that might look like taking time to work with a therapist. Somatic practices like meditation, yoga, breath work, body scanning, all of that helps us become really in tune with our body and creates an intuitive relationship where you can actually listen to your body and understand yourself better. Setting boundaries with people in your life can be really hard, and especially holding those boundaries once you've set them and enforcing those boundaries when you need to, even though other people might not like it. But setting boundaries is really incredibly important. Prioritizing rest, real rest, not rest while you're scrolling through your phone, not rest while you're watching something on Netflix, real rest where your brain has an opportunity to just silence itself. Building safe relationships with people that you trust, having people that you can actually lean into, and then actually leaning into those people. My husband has become that person for me. And every day he begs me to just lean into him when there's something going on. And that's something that's been really hard for me because I've been such a lone wolf emotionally for my whole life. But leaning into him has become so important. All of these things together help the body feel safe again. And when the body feels safe, the nervous system settles, digestion improves, and the gut finally has space to heal. So, if anything in today's episode has connected with you, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach out, you can send me a message, you can share the small shifts that you're thinking about making in your own life. And if you're looking for support with your gut health, with nutrition, with nervous system regulation, we can always start with a conversation. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for every listen, every download, every share, every person who chooses to spend a little piece of their day with me. I get so excited when I see downloads coming through. Like it makes me feel like I'm not just speaking into the abyss and that there are people who are getting value from the things that I'm sharing. So until next time, take care of your gut because your gut is definitely listening. Take very good care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.